So imagine your consciousness suddenly expanding trillions of miles in every single direction. Like you can literally feel the physical sensations of entire galaxies just swirling around you.
Oh, wow.
Right. And you're flooded with this overwhelming, indescribable sense of bliss. I mean, naturally, your very first instinct would probably be to conclude that you've transcended your human body and, well, actually become God.
Yeah, that's exactly where the mind would go.
But according to one master yogi, making that exact assumption is the single most dangerous trap a human mind can fall into.
It's the ultimate paradox of any spiritual pursuit, isn't it? I mean, we live in this era of absolute information overload.
Oh, completely.
And our survival mechanism is to shrink everything down into these neat little digestible bullet points.
Mhm.
We want the entire universe to, fit into a tidy, manageable framework.
Just put it in a box.
Right, put it in a box. But the moment you try to slap a label on the infant, the moment you try to contain it, you completely lose the essence of what you're actually looking at.
And that is really the central tension of our deep dive today. We're exploring this incredibly comprehensive analysis by a man named Osman. He's a blind yogi, a master-level energy healer, and an advanced meditation teacher.
An incredible background, really.
Yeah, and his work attempts to map out the yoga sciences and the broader philosophy of the divine. So today, we're taking you on a journey that starts in the rigid, deeply academic frameworks of ancient philosophy and pushes all the way out into these mind-bending, out-of-body meditative states.
And Osman's perspective is incredibly challenging because he doesn't let you settle for those easy answers.
No, he really doesn't.
He systematically dismantles the conditioned, everyday human mind. He basically forces you to confront the absolute limits of human intellect.
Okay, let's unpack this because
Yeah.
to really understand where Osman eventually lands with all of this, which, spoiler, is a profound shift in how we interact with reality, we first have to look at the traditional systems he's actually critiquing.
Right. We had to start where he starts.
Exactly. He starts by analyzing the landscape of Vedanta philosophy. To set the stage for you, if you look at the regions south of the Indus Valleys, so what we broadly call India and Pakistan today, you're looking at a historical landscape with roughly 1,300 distinct languages.
That's a massive amount of cultural diversity.
Huge. And according to Osman's research, an estimated 33 million different concepts of God.
Which is just staggering. I mean, that number alone completely shatters the Western monolith of what is casually grouped together as Hinduism.
Right, there is no single monolith.
There isn't. What we're actually looking at is a massive, incredibly diverse ecosystem of thought. And within the Vedanta tradition specifically, ancient scholars recognize a profound problem. Like, how do you prevent a society with 33 million different ideas of the divine from collapsing into constant theological warfare?
Yeah, wait, 33 million concepts, that just sounds like a recipe for absolute chaos. I mean, how does any philosophical system bear that kind of weight without completely fracturing?
Well, they managed it through radical inclusivity, which is essentially level one of this graduated system they built. In this first tier, which is designed for the broadest possible masses, the philosophy teaches that God has countless names, countless forms, and is, quite literally everywhere and in everything.
So it's a framework of total pervasive reverence.
Exactly.
You're taught to see the divine in your parents, in the local monks begging for food, in the Buddha, in highly elevated teachers. It validates everyone's local deity.
Precisely. Because if God is in everything, you must treat your environment and your neighbors with a baseline level of respect. It builds social cohesion. It's like an introductory survey course in spirituality.
But this broad inclusivity, it creates a psychological problem, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you focus on absolutely everything, you are effectively focusing on nothing. So how do you train a wandering human mind to actually achieve deep, transformative concentration if you're telling it to revere 33 million different things?
You can't. You really can't. And that psychological necessity forces the creation of level 2.
Okay.
This second gradation is designed for more serious spiritual seekers.
Mm-hmm.
And what's fascinating here is it completely pivots away from that broad inclusivity. Suddenly, the focus narrows with extreme prejudice.
Wow, okay.
You move from God is everywhere in millions of forms to focusing your entire life on just one specific personal God. Like maybe you dedicate yourself entirely to Vishnu or entirely to Shiva.
And what happens to the other 32,999,999 deities?
They get demoted.
Oh, man.
Yeah, in this specific framework, they're viewed merely as lesser demigods or administrators of the universe. You only worship your one true Supreme Personality.
Okay, so from a psychological perspective, I totally see the mechanism here.
Yep.
You shrink the target so you can actually hit the bullseye.
Exactly. It's about mental discipline.
Think of it like training your brain. Level 1 is your broad, chaotic, open-world experience. But Level 2 is like entering a sensory deprivation tank with one single focal point. By giving the serious practitioner one specific deity, complete with strict rules, daily rituals, and a specific narrative, you stop the mind from wandering.
You deepen the concentration immensely. And in the tradition, this philosophy of strict, specialized focus is known as Vishishtadvaita. It provides a highly effective psychological anchor.
Right.
But then, for the absolute most advanced practitioners, we reach the third and highest level of Vedanta philosophy. And here is where the entire system just pulls the rug right out from under you.
Oh, I love this part.
Because this highest level completely denies the reality of the previous two levels.
It's a total paradigm shift. This third level, which is known as Advaita, asserts that the ultimate reality is not 33 million gods. But it also isn't one specialized god with a name and a face and a backstory.
Right.
Advaita says God has absolutely no form.
But crucially, it also insists God is not formless.
Which just breaks the human brain. I mean, how can something be neither form nor formless?
It defies all logic.
The philosophy essentially declares that the divine is entirely inconceivable. It exists in a state totally beyond the conceptual boundaries, beyond logic or the processing power of the human mind, period.
Yeah.
And this brings up a massive point of friction for me. If the ultimate truth of your system is that the divine is inconceivable, what is the logic of handing people these elaborate fictions? You know, these lower levels of specific forms and myths.
Well, when traditional scholars are pressed on this exact contradiction, their defense is purely psychological. They argue that the masses simply do not have the neurological or spiritual hardware to digest the inconceivable.
They're just not ready for it.
Right. If you tell a regular person, hey, God is a formless, conceptless, infinite void, they're going to feel completely disconnected. They need a stepping stone. They need a physical form to love, to pray to visualize in their mind's eye until their psychology advances enough to realize that the form was just, a temporary set of training wheels.
But Osman fiercely critiques this graduated approach, doesn't he?
He really does.
He argues that creating comfortable fictions is a disservice to the seeker. He believes you have to declare the complete, terrifying truth from the very beginning. You should tell people right out of the gate, the divine is inconceivable. Like, don't water it down just because the human mind hates abstraction.
Exactly. And to prove how difficult this abstraction is, Osman points to Swami Vivekananda. He was a major, brilliant proponent of Advaita philosophy, who famously brought these concepts to the Western world, speaking at the United Nations in the early 1900s.
Right, and Vivekananda's teachings on this inconceivable reality were compiled into a massive 9-volume edition.
9 volumes.
And those texts are so incredibly dense, so labyrinthine in their logic, that even the editors and modern spiritual scholars openly admit they are completely lost in certain chapters.
Which perfectly illustrates Osman's core thesis here.
Yeah.
Academic philosophy has a hard, impenetrable ceiling. You can read 9 volumes of brilliant text about the inconceivable nature of reality and still have absolutely no idea what it actually is.
Because language itself is a box.
Exactly. And you cannot put the infinite into a box.
And human beings despise not having a box. Which bridges us to the next major conflict Osman highlights. Because once you admit that the ultimate reality is beyond human comprehension, there is this desperate psychological scramble to put a human face on it anyway.
We want something we can relate to.
Right. And this leads directly into a massive theological debate about incarnation.
Yes. In that second level of Vedanta we discussed, where practitioners focus on a specialized deity, those deities are highly anthropomorphized. They are given human-like bodies, personalities, and sprawling mythological dramas.
Like literal soap operas.
Pretty much. Followers of Shiva might visualize him in a meditative posture, wearing ascetic robes, with a physical snake coiled around his neck. They have texts detailing his cosmic wife, his children, his battles.
Or look at the followers of Vishnu. They take it a step further. They believe that this supreme, infinite intelligence actually compresses itself down and takes birth in the physical world as a human being. They view figures like Krishna or even the historical Buddha as literal biological incarnations of God walking the earth.
But then you encounter a completely different philosophical framework, one that Osman brings into the spotlight to show the stark contrast. It's called Saiva Siddhanta.
Oh, this is fascinating.
Now, despite the slightly similar name, this is a distinct, highly rigorous school of thought that clashes openly and aggressively with the Vedanta view of deities and avatars.
Yes, Saiva Siddhanta pulls no punches. They assert unequivocally that God is exactly one. Furthermore, God does not have a masculine physical form. God does not have a feminine physical form.
None of it.
There is no cosmic life, there are no divine children, and there are certainly no physical snakes around the neck. And their most crucial, non-negotiable point: God never incarnates into a biological human form, ever.
For the practitioners of Saiva Siddhanta, it is profoundly illogical, even insulting, to suggest that the infinite, boundless architect of the multiverse would ever compress itself into a fragile biological vessel that has to eat, sleep, and eventually rot.
See, here's where it gets really interesting to me. This clash is fascinating because it forces us to look at our own psychology. Like, why do we do this? Are we, as a species, just chronically projecting our own biology onto the cosmos?
It certainly seems that way.
We are so deeply uncomfortable with an abstract, invisible force that we basically draw a face on the universe and say, look, it has a family just like mine. It gets angry and jealous just like me.
It highlights a deep vulnerability in the human condition.
Yeah.
We want the architect of reality to be someone we could theoretically, have a conversation with over coffee.
It feels like the ultimate human ego trip. Assuming the creator of all astrophysics and quantum mechanics basically looks like a guy you might pass on the street. But this leaves us at a profound dead end. If giving the divine a human face is just a psychological crutch, and if reading 9 volumes of dense philosophy about the inconceivable leaves us totally confused, how do you actually grasp any of this?
This is exactly where Osman pivots from being an intellectual scholar to being an active practitioner. He states that academic philosophy, reading books, and theological debates can only take you to the front porch of understanding.
You're just looking at the house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you want to know what is inside the house, you have to acquire experiential knowledge. You have to undergo a process that fundamentally alters your consciousness. And in his tradition, the mechanism for that is the advanced practice of Raja Yoga.
Now, we need to clarify this immediately. Raja Yoga is not, stretching in a heated studio on a Tuesday morning.
Definitely not.
It is a grueling, fiercely rigorous, 8-staged science of human consciousness. It is a systematic dismantling of the human operating system.
Let's look at the mechanics of how it actually works, because it's wild. It doesn't even start with meditation. The first 2 stages, yama and niyama, are entirely about radically restricting your external behavior. You adopt strict moral disciplines. You stop lying, you stop stealing, you regulate your desires.
Why? Because guilt, greed, and anxiety create massive amounts of psychological static.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You cannot achieve deep concentration if your subconscious is constantly worried about who you just cheated.
Right. You have to quiet the noise of your own life first. Then you move to the 3rd stage, asana, which are the physical postures. But again, it's not about getting a good workout. The mechanism here is to force the biological body to sit perfectly still for hours on end without sending pain signals or discomfort to the brain.
You are trying to make the brain forget the body even exists.
This sounds impossible.
It takes years. And once the body is neutralized, you target the nervous system. The 4th stage is pranayama, advanced breath control, which actively alters your heart rate and brainwave states. This prepares you for the 5th stage, pratyahara.
And this is where it gets extreme. Pratyahara is the complete neurological withdrawal of the senses. You are essentially starving your brain of all external stimuli. You don't feel the air on your skin. You are literally shutting off the input valves.
Exactly. Because only when you have 0 external competition can you achieve the 6th and 7th stages. Dharana, which is laser-like, unbroken concentration, and dhyana, which is profound, suspended meditation.
And if a practitioner can hold that state long enough, the entire progression culminates in a neurological and spiritual breakthrough, a state known as Samadhi.
Now, if you read surface-level pop spirituality books, Samadhi is almost always presented as the grand finale.
Right. You hit Samadhi, you dissolve your ego, you achieve enlightenment, and boom, you win the spiritual game.
But Osman, drawing directly on his own profound out-of-body experiences, reveals a staggering truth. Samadhi is not the finish line. It is merely the first level of an entirely new paradigm.
Wait, really? The first level?
Yeah, he describes it as just the first of 99 transcendental gradations, each one exponentially more vast, more complex, and more indescribable than the last.
I mean, he describes the mechanics of entering this state, and it's a sudden, violent expansion. Your awareness doesn't just sit in your head anymore. It expands trillions of kilometers in every direction.
It's mind-blowing.
You are suddenly processing the sheer multiversal vastness of creation, and this cognitive explosion is accompanied by a tremendous, overwhelming flood of love and bliss that permeates the fabric of everything.
That sounds incredible. But Osman warns that this exact experience creates the most dangerous trap an advanced practitioner will ever face.
The illusion of oneness. Osman explains that when a human mind hits this state of samadhi and they feel this infinite cosmic vastness, they make a colossal error in judgment. They conclude that because they are experiencing the universe, they have literally merged with God.
They think, I am experiencing the infinite, therefore I am the infinite.
Yes.
And from a neurological standpoint, it's an understandable error. If you have spent your entire existence trapped inside a tiny, heavily conditioned, 5-foot-something physical body, and suddenly your consciousness is blown open to encompass the sensation of galaxies, the shock to your system is absolute.
I love the analogy Osman uses for this, pulling from the classic movie The Gods Must Be Crazy.
Oh, that's a great one.
Right. In the film, you have a remote, isolated tribe of Bushmen in Africa. Suddenly, they encounter a modern Western man wearing strange clothes, using technology they've never seen, speaking a language they don't understand. Because this man operates on a scale so vastly beyond their current frame of reference, they immediately assume he must be a divine being.
They completely misinterpret a difference in scale and complexity as literal divinity.
And Osman is saying that advanced meditators do the exact same thing in Samadhi. Just because you, a limited biological creature, suddenly get a glimpse of the unlimited, it does not mean you have become the unlimited.
Right.
It's like a drop of water finally seeing the ocean and arrogantly declaring, I am the ocean, rather than recognizing it was created by the ocean. Or like a complex artificial intelligence program suddenly gaining access to the camera feeds of the massive server farm it's running on. The AI looks at the endless rows of blinking lights and processing units and immediately concludes, I am the creator of the internet.
No, you're just a string of code that is finally perceiving the hardware that's built for you.
Exactly.
That is a perfect way to conceptualize it.
Yeah.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it completely changes the trajectory of the human experience. Because if reaching the absolute outer limits of consciousness in samadhi proves that we are not God, that we're just witnessing a fraction of the architecture, then what is the correct human response?
What are you supposed to do when you actually touch the inconceivable?
According to Osman, there is only one rational, logical response. Absolute, profound humility. The sheer scale and awe of the experience completely crushes the human ego into dust.
And Osman is quick to point out that you don't even need to reach samadhi to start practicing this humility, right? The evidence of an unimaginably vast intelligence is operating right in front of us every single second.
Everywhere you look.
Just look at the staggering biochemical complexity of your own body. Look at the invisible, highly coordinated cellular mechanisms that instantly rush to heal a tiny paper cut on your finger. Or look at the soil under our feet. Science admits there are trillions of microscopic organisms, vast communicating ecosystems of fungi that we haven't even discovered or named yet.
The logic is undeniable. If the creation is this intricate, this flawless, and this overwhelmingly complex, then the creator of that system must be infinitely greater than the system itself.
If a painting is a masterpiece, the painter must possess a genius that far exceeds the canvas.
Exactly. And Osman says that deeply internalizing this realization fundamentally redefines how we interact with the divine. It forces a total shift away from what he calls the master-servant dynamic.
Which, let's be honest, is how the vast majority of us operate. We treat the universe like a cosmic vending machine.
A vending machine.
We put in our prayers, we do our good deeds, we say our positive daily affirmations, and we expect it to dispense exactly the reality we asked for. We get incredibly egotistical, like, I wanted this promotion, I wanted this house, I did the right things, why didn't you give me what I demanded?
We act like the master giving orders to a cosmic servant.
Totally.
But when you actually taste the vastness of the creator, when you realize the sheer scale of the intelligence operating the machinery of the universe, making petty demands suddenly feels absurd. The arrogance just evaporates.
It's replaced by a desire for pure, submissive surrender. You realize you're relying on a power that understands the grand, eternal tapestry of existence in a way your deeply conditioned, localized mind never, ever could.
But inevitably, whenever we talk about surrendering to a perfectly intelligent, all-loving creator, we hit the absolute hardest question of human existence.
The problem of suffering. If this inconceivable intelligence is so full of love-like, this incredible flood of bliss Osman experienced in Samadhi, then why does it permit so much agonizing pain? Why is there disease? Why are there horrific accidents?
It's the ultimate question.
If you surrender to this vastness, aren't you essentially surrendering to a system that routinely inflicts unimaginable misery on innocent people?
Osman does address this, and he attempts to reframe it by viewing the brutality of the physical world through the lens of eternity. He uses an analogy about an amusement park.
Right. He says, imagine you are a little kid. Your dad always takes you to the small, kind of dingy local fair that pops up in an empty parking lot. It's all you know and you love it.
Sure.
One day, your dad forces you into the car and drives you away from the fair. As a kid, you are devastated. You're crying, you're resisting, you feel like your whole world is ending because something you love is being taken away.
You're losing everything you know.
But then, your dad pulls up to a massive, state-of-the-art, permanent, mega theme park. Suddenly, the kid realizes, oh, this is what he was trying to give me. This is infinitely better. But the kid couldn't understand the upgrade until they went through the pain of leaving the parking lot.
Osman uses this to illustrate our highly conditioned human perspective. We are so fiercely identified with our fragile physical bodies and our immediate surroundings that we interpret the natural transitions of existence like death as cruel, permanent disasters.
Okay, I have to be completely honest here. I really struggle with that analogy.
I think a lot of people do.
I understand the cold, mathematical logic of eternity making an 80-year human lifespan look like a microscopic blip, but when you are the one sitting in an oncology ward, or you're the one burying a loved one after an accident, telling someone, hey, you're just crying over leaving a dingy fairground, feels incredibly cold and dismissive.
It does.
Does Osman actually offer a psychological mechanism to navigate that brutal reality, or is it just a philosophical dismissal of human pain?
That is a highly valid pushback. And if we look deeper into the mechanics of what Osman is teaching, the answer lies in the nature of surrender itself.
Okay.
It's not about mathematically dismissing the pain. It's about how surrender alters the brain's experience of suffering. See, pain is a biological inevitability in this physical dimension. But suffering is often the psychological friction created by our resistance to that pain.
So when we scream, this shouldn't be happening to me, we amplify the agony.
Exactly. Osman is suggesting that by achieving absolute surrender to an inconceivable intelligence, trusting that the overarching architecture of the universe has a purpose beyond our comprehension, you drop the psychological resistance. You still feel the biological pain, but the existential suffering, the despair, begins to dissolve.
You stop fighting the current of the river even when the water is freezing.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
So let's look at the incredible arc we've traced today. We started by navigating the rigid, highly categorized academic stepping stones of Vedanta philosophy, trying to organize 33 million concepts of God.
We went through a lot.
We explored the fierce psychological debates over whether the infinite would ever compress itself into a human incarnation with Saiva Siddhanta, and then we completely left the textbooks behind. We followed Osman's experiential knowledge into the out-of-body vastness of Samadhi, where the illusion of our own divinity is totally shattered.
Leaving nothing behind but an overwhelming need to humbly surrender to an inconceivable reality.
Which brings us to a really compelling, highly practical final thought. After all of his profound explorations across countless ancient texts and through deep, altered states of consciousness, Osman ultimately chose Islam as his personal daily faith.
And he didn't choose it necessarily because academic theological arguments.
No.
He chose it because it offered him a structured, intensely physical method, putting his forehead to the ground in prayer multiple times a day, even waking up in the cold middle of the night, to express that overwhelming, crushing desire to physically surrender to the vastness he experienced. It provided the biological and psychological framework for his humility.
So as you go about your day, think about your own life. If you were to strip away all the labels, all the religious texts, and all the intellectual debates you rely on to make sense of the universe,
All of it.
and you were left solely with a direct, unfiltered experience of reality's absolute, unimaginable vastness, how would that fundamentally change the way you interact with the world tomorrow morning? Would you still treat the universe like a vending machine demanding it give you exactly what you want? Or would you finally just bow your head, drop your resistance, and surrender to the inconceivable? Something to think about.